in like American football, okay, the win's a bit different, but
Right.
it also means the draft order is very different. And because we saw things like the Trundle into Poppy in the previous game, the guarantee of a counter pick, now Samsung Galaxy has the guarantee of a late counter pick in the draft. That's why you're seeing different bans here. The Jace ban, for example, the very bottom left corner, that is a completely fresh new ban here for SKT. They've added in, they say, hey, CuVee, we don't want you to have the chance to play that after seeing our top laner.
Oh, very interesting. Yeah, you know, I was talking to my friend. There's so many intricacies to this sort of part of the game that it's hard to really express in just commentating. Like, for instance, the Misfortune ban that they had last game, because they were the first team to ban it, the other team immediately knew, hey, we can take this champion, and we know that we're going to be in a better position because of it. But so many small little details here, and I mean, this is the important part of having a coach here to really make sure that they have the cool head and they can see it from the outside, right?
They certainly do, and to speak about SK Telecom's coach, Koma is a guy who is legendary in and of his own right. He's been with SKT for so long. He's considered by many to be the best coach in the world, and we got to see this kind of behind-the-scenes peek at Eyes on SKT, a piece that you guys should all check out on LoL Esports YouTube if you haven't watched it. Hearing him talking with his team, hearing him, you know, give them criticism even when they're doing well, and and then back and forth, like pushing these players to be better and better and better, and even himself when he made mistakes in the draft, acknowledging that and kind of having this mutual respect with his players. It seemed very interesting and very important for them to have.
Hey, you know, tough love.
Yeah.
It goes a long way, especially any of you out there that played sports know that having a coach that's willing to, you know, really dig in deep and force you to challenge yourself is a huge part of getting better at anything competitively.
And I also think you have to have an immense amount of trust in your coach that he will make the right pick for you.
Right.
Because you are playing massively different champions. Imagine going into the football game, I'm a linebacker, and they're like, all right, you're playing quarterback this game. You know, it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. If you're not trusting that your coach is making the right decision here, that seems pretty wacky, and it's almost the level of difference between some of these champions. Playing a very simplistic tank versus playing, you know, a hyper carry top laner like Fiora or something, right? There's massive differences.
Right, right. I'd say Bill Belichick of the Patriots definitely makes his players trust him because he'll do some crazy things and they always pay off because, you know, the planning from the top down makes a huge difference.
Okay, so now we see Samsung Galaxy pick the same champion they had before this, Caitlyn. We've been getting a question a lot throughout Twitter, so I want to make sure we clear the air on this one. They've been confused about some language between AD carry and marksman. So a marksman, I think, is a pretty evocative term, right? I've got a sniper rifle or something. I'm always shooting guns or a bow and arrow, and I'm doing lots of repeated physical damage. The term that most of League of Legends players use is AD carry, which is attack damage carry, right? They're using attacks to do all of their damage, and they're using carry in the sense of, well, they're doing most of the damage in the fight. So they're almost interchangeable terms in certain contexts, but we're referring to champions like this Caitlyn, who are usually safe in the back line. They often have very little sort of utility to bring to their team, and it's their job to just belt out damage. And that is almost exactly what this Caitlyn pick does, that we will see ruler play for the second time here.
Yeah, and if you guys remember in the last game, Caitlyn was throwing down traps left and right in this nice little arrangement in front of all the towers, and that really helped Samsung just sort of take the pressure off of themselves as the rest of the team could sort of coordinate themselves behind it. And so Caitlyn has a lot of utility in that realm as well.
Yeah, especially in combination with the Zyra. There's all these plants you have to walk through, there's all these traps you have to walk through, and there's just all this crap that's in front of you between your opponents.
All right, so I need to explain why I just yelled right there. So the fourth champion picked right now for
Kindred,
Samsung Galaxy is Kindred. So we just talked about marksman and AD carries. Kindred is a marksman, right? She is a bow and arrow type user who plays in the jungle. Right. So it's still going to be one of those dynamic, I'm alone type champions, but it's actually a source of high repeatable damage, and why I exclaimed, we have not seen this champion picked in pro play in several months. Right. And it's the first time we've seen it at this tournament specifically, of course.
And a big reason why we don't see it anymore is because of some of the early game buff, or nerfs rather, that it had received in the past. It's a lot harder for Kindred to match up favorably against powerful early game junglers like the Lee Sin. This is a champion that you need to be able to kite around, you need to be very nimble, but you don't really have enough damage to kind of compete with some of these champions like Lee Sin in the early games, and it's going to be tough for her to really match up well there.
Now, do you think they're going to go for the sort of when I remember playing against Kindred in the jungle, it's very much the element of surprise. She comes out of nowhere, she can cross a huge distance and get rid of you sort of with the ganks. Is that sort of what they're looking for here?
Yeah, definitely. I think that being able to kind of hop over those walls that you're alluding to, you can come from unpredictable paths, right? You can come from different angles and you can pull out some of those ganks. And another thing that Kindred's very good at is, as a ranged jungler, you can just join a lane and start hitting the turret much more safely than a melee character can do. So you can help to push, and you can also help to keep these hyper carries in the back line safe, your Cassiopeia and your Caitlyn.
Right, it contrasts very heavily with what we have almost always seen. So you've got great examples of this. So we earlier had contrasted Jhin versus Caitlyn, the two AD carries, the two marksmen these teams were playing. It's the same matchup as the last game, where Jhin typically brings more slows, more help to his team, whereas Caitlyn is much more comparatively about just her raw damage and does relatively little else. We've got a Lee Sin, who is, a pseudo tank in a sense. He's a frontliner. He is there for playmaking. We've got a jungle Lee Sin coming through here on the SKT side in the jungle for Bengi, and that contrasts very sharply with what the Kindred brings, where the Kindred is squishy, low utility, pretty high damage, but is very good at turning an advantage and snowballing it into a bigger one. If Ambition gets ahead, he will get massively ahead and almost 1 versus 5 the game.
And I mean, one of the big points of utility you have to bring up, though, for Kindred is the ultimate. So Kindred's ultimate basically drops this circle on the ground that's essentially a no-death zone. You can't actually be killed while you're standing in it, but it works for both teams. So it's very interesting in that if you drop it in the wrong spot, you can save your opponent. If you drop it in the right spot, you can save your important damage dealer, save your mid laner, your AD carry, or marksman, if you will, and then allow these guys to kind of take the fight after that.
Very interesting, a nice balance of life and death, as is very much in the character itself.
That is the lore of the character, actually. The lore of Kindred, for those who want to know, she is the manifestation of death on the mythical world that League of Legends takes place on. And so it's interesting, she's kind of a duality. The major character is called Lamb. She's a pet wolf as well, which hunts characters down. It's probably getting a bit into the weeds at this point, but essentially, Ambition is playing a very exciting champion. It's going to be very fun. We've seen a lot of other new champions picked up as well. It'll be hard to cover all of them. The one big thing I want to point out, actually, is the top lane. Azael, you can help me with this one. So last game, we saw Poppy and Trundle. They're two frontliners. They wield hammers and clubs. They are practically invincible, and they're just going to kind of butt heads and just be a frontliner. Now we have Gnar for SKT and Kennen for Samsung Galaxy. And Azael, if you want to walk me through what they do.
Yeah, so Gnar can kind of build into that tank, but he has two forms. His main form that you're going to be using is called Mini Gnar.
And that's him right here.
This little character. He has a boomerang. He essentially acts as a pseudo marksman, throwing his boomerang, dealing range damage.
And hopping around like a madman.
Exactly, hopping around like a madman.
Quite nimble.
As he deals damage, he builds up rage. And when he transforms into Mega Gnar at a full rage bar, he gains CC and these kind of more tanky utility type abilities that makes him really strong in the team fight. And then inversely, Kennen is all about damage. Kennen is all about AoE damage. He has a massive AoE ultimate that is going to damage everyone in the circle, and you can also stun people up off of that. He's going to be building ability power, and he will be much more squishy because of that.
And what's interesting as well is the best way to play Kennen, even though he is a much more fragile champion than what CuVee played last game, which is Poppy, you will still see him try to flank. His big ultimate is he creates a giant thunderstorm that eviscerates freaking everything around him for the next like 3 seconds, and he would love that thunderstorm to hit the other squishy champions, to hit Faker's Ryze, to hit Bang's Jhin, and immediately kill those champions. By comparison, it will not kill Duke's Gnar.
Yes, absolutely. And actually, speaking of Faker's Ryze, one of the co-founders of Riot, his name is Ryze. This champion's seen a bunch of reworks, and it's really cool because champions that you started the game out with, the people that played the game originally, sort of fell out of favor as new champions get released or they get underpowered. But Riot loves, to reward, I think, the fandom, and in this case, bring back certain characters, rework them to be something new, and Faker is playing Ryze, and he's a pretty scary one at that.
I mean, it's worth mentioning, when you win a world championship, you get a skin for a character, right?
Yep. Right.
Guess what? This is his world championship Ryze skin that he's playing. It's kind of saying, yeah, I'm the world champion. It's going to be me that wins again. I'm going to get another skin. He's playing the champion that was his namesake at that last world championship. It was what he dominated on, and that was pre-rework, but he's busting it out again, and I think it's definitely some intimidation, some style factor here from Faker.
Yeah, like 30% of the character is different now. He's got a couple of slightly different abilities. It works a little bit differently than it did last year, and Faker said, I'm going to wear my own own outfit, essentially. I have my own Faker outfit for this champion. You know, to describe what skins are. It's the same character, it just looks a bit different. Yep. And Faker has his own version of the character.
I love that you can wear skins in this game in the highest of competitive levels. We've seen a lot of, you know, hey, you wear the wrong socks in the NFL, you're getting a huge fine.
Yeah.
In this case, it's like, no, flaunt what you got, throw your insignia over your head.
He's got Faker socks, essentially. And everyone can wear Faker socks, by the way. The way it works, it's not just for him. Everyone else can also unlock the skin and, you know, try to be a little bit like Faker, because don't we all want to?
Yeah, oh, definitely.
I also think it's a little fun because Faker is actually renowned for never using skins.
That's true.
This guy always uses base skin no matter what. And this is maybe one of the first times ever he's actually used
it was once
skin.
on accident.
So once on accident he used a skin. So this is like...
This might be literally his first purposeful skin usage
think it might ever,
in the history of professional League of Legends.
Which is kind of crazy. So
That's amazing.
It's like a statement. He never does this, and I actually had heard that Faker had something, you know, kind of prepared that like he wanted to do for this. So maybe it was as simple as using his own skin and just kind of showing off a little bit with that.
Right. It is funny because SKT have 2 different lines of skins because they've won the World Championship twice. There's 10 outfits out there. Right. They might get another. There's actually 11 outfits out there because they got one for their 6th man last year. That they didn't when they won in 2013. So there's 6 SK Telecom outfits out there, and they're using one of them, or 11 out there they're using right now.
Yeah.
Well, hey, flaunt it if you got it.
Absolutely.
That's what I got to say.
Okay, so I'm going to redirect to another Twitter question. Caleb Solaris asks, how do you decide what items to purchase at the beginning? You have very limited gold at the very beginning. You have very few options out there. Is there a set order?
So generally speaking, there's going to be a standard item for each sorts of champions. There's all kinds of different ones, but there's a couple standard starting items that you would look at. There's some Doran's items that you can choose from as that are going to be good for tanks and casters and so on.
Yeah, you can technically afford about 12 different things at the beginning, whether a little piece of armor or a little bit of magic resist, a little bit of attack damage, maybe combinations between, and right, you're looking for high efficiency in the game.
And if you look at the bottom part of your screens as well, you'll see the items that each player has built, and you'll see some common ones. For example, Duran's Blade is the sword that a few champions have. You can also see
top
that
left, bottom right, top right. Actually, 4 characters have it.
And you can also see that people are buying potions, of course, as well, because you need a little bit of sustain.
We got to fight first off, though, and it's Faker running out of mana, getting chased down in Crown. Ooh, nearly takes him out, and you saw Kindred come in. If that fight lasted 2 seconds longer, Ambition is there to capitalize on that kill.
It certainly would be, and just to continue a little bit more, so AD carries, standard is the Doran's Blade. They're almost always going to start with that. And then there's support items that give you additional gold because you don't kill the minions as a support, so you gain gold in other ways. They're going to use Spell Thieves, and there is generally standard ones. And one of the nice things about League of Legends for new players is if you hop in, there will be a recommended items page, and you can essentially just buy items from this list that will be pretty decent for your champion in most situations.
They're tailored for the character you're playing. The game knows what you picked. It even knows what role you picked it in when that's relevant. It says, oh, okay, you're jungling Kindred. Well, you should start with the items that Ambition had started with this game. And you know, the game knows enough to know that's what you went for. And yeah, if you are newer to League of Legends, that will be useful for you. What's also great is the community has made a lot of these sets as well. There's a huge sort of fan site community for League of Legends, and they will track what professionals buy, and they'll be like, yeah, you should buy what Faker bought this game, and the list will be there for you to use.
Yeah, even as an experienced player myself, I'm relatively high elo, playing in Diamond and stuff.
Like
I still like to look at these pages and see what the new best builds are. So there's lots of resources for you to check out, and I definitely recommend doing that.
Yeah, and I think that appeals to a very certain subset of gamers, too, that like to maximize the amount they get of effectiveness from their items. And with each patch, of course, new things will happen. Some items will all of a sudden become very powerful. For instance, Thunderlord's Decree, I think, was one that made the rounds. When it's not an item, but it's something that a patch came out, and all of a sudden this ability just had a lot of power behind it. And people were like, hey, if you're not on this train, you should be. Yeah. You know, it's really fun to see going into a game, every single player taking it.
I remember that. At the start of that, it was in Mastery that you could choose, which are kind of like talents or whatever, if you will. And everyone was using it, as you said. It would be all 10 players would have Thunderlords. It was pretty funny.
So you just saw there, the last couple of plays you saw, first off, it was a blue buff being handed over to Faker. We didn't yet describe what we did actually. A blue buff gives you a bunch of mana regeneration, a bunch of cooldown reduction, and it makes your spells do more damage, especially if you're a champion like Faker has on Ryze. And he got that buff, came back to the mid lane, but while that was happening, we saw Ambition just below where your screen was. He stole away another jungle camp, and Kindred is a special champion. She's a poacher in a sense. Wolf, who is part of that character, basically says, ooh, I want you to kill one of those enemy jungle camps, and I want you to kill that raptor camp that he had just killed. And if you kill it, you get a reward. You do more damage for the rest of the game. And Ambition was able to capitalize off of that blue buff transfer, that blue buff that was given over with Bengi on the left-hand side of the screen, and said, okay, well, I'm going to grab this, and now he's more powerful. But
a very delicate dance that went a little awry there, actually.
Yeah, failed the blue buff transfer.
Yeah, so Ambition meant to give that over to his mid laner, and because he accidentally got the last hit, he takes that buff, and it means that Faker will have the blue buff and his opponent will not.
And now Bengi's trying to fight Ambition, got the dodge away from some of those skill shots, the one-on-one, the kickback, and suddenly everyone else is here. Gonna pop the left to fight. Ambition gets first blood, and he's gonna try to be saved by his team. The shots to be blocked. One more hit will do it. Summoner heal coming in, and this is Samsung winning the fight, looking for a little bit more damage. Wolf is dangerously low on HP. What a turnaround.
Wow. Bengi really misplayed that there. He should have had the advantage in the duel, but Ambition played it very well, and they're looking to dive these guys. They're trying to set up a 4v3 here. This would be really risky. Faker wants to go forward.
Realm War brings into the blast prison. That was beautiful by Faker. He used his ultimate to teleport a screen forward and catch out CoreJJ and make it a 1-for-1.
Wow, right as Samsung sort of splits off and says, you know what, we're not going to try to do this pincer. Faker reads that, immediately goes and just steals the kill there. That's, man, I mean, watching him is just unbelievable.
Yeah. But what really matters, though, is what else you can do afterwards. Despite the kills technically being 1-for-1, Samsung Galaxy have a better position over the map. Their health bars are higher, and it's actually more coming in. This is him trying to find a 1 versus 2 kill. He forces out the exhaust, cleanses away the exhaust, and nearly gets one more, but still, that is a worth it play. He burned a lot of cooldowns from his opponents, and meanwhile, the dragon, the mountain drake, was also killed off by Ambition. So a big global buff just went over to Samsung Galaxy thanks to Ambition.
And notably, if you guys were watching the bottom lane there for SKT, both of them used Flash to teleport themselves away from danger, and that means that they can no longer engage in the same way that they would, because they're down an ability that the other team knows, and they know, hey, they have 200 or so seconds before this comes back up. We can play in a different style now because of it.
It looks like SKT wants to go for a dive.
Kick into the wall, land on the skill shots. Not even a chance to do anything about it. CuVee goes down. A nice kill coming through from Bengi and Faker.
And Ambition, you know, he was there, but he didn't have his ultimate available to save his teammate. So SKT knew they were able to go for this aggressive play, and it was very important because CuVee was actually getting a lot ahead as far as the gold. He had killed 20 more minions, and you don't want to allow CuVee on this Kennen to really get too far ahead of your Gnar and start taking over.
Yeah, traditionally we think of Kennen into Gnar as a counter matchup, so much like Duke had the advantage playing Trundle into Poppy last game, you expect CuVee to now be the one to lead. And again, these teams swap sides. The red team now is Samsung Galaxy. We expect this matchup to go well for him.
Certainly do, but it's an interesting matchup because it should go well early, but not for the whole game. Usually it gets to a stage where Gnar starts to take over. Well, this is just really well done. And you can see Bengi uses his ultimate, which will kick his opponent back into the air, and then he uses his Sonic Wave. He shoots out this projectile and connects. He can then activate that ability again to basically fly to his opponent and kind of execute them.
Yeah, I love watching Lee Sin play. He's one of the most dynamic sort of champions in the game, and you know, his big play potential is just up there because he can zip his way over across walls to champions just like he's doing right here in the jungle, and it's just so much fun to see happen. And I love this game.
Yeah, the mechanical ability that you need to play this character at the highest level is pretty astounding. He's one of the most difficult champions to play very well, and Bengi, you did have a pretty big mistake earlier in the game because, generally speaking, as that Lee Sin, because you have this kick, you want to use it against Kindred when she drops her ultimate. So Kindred drops the ultimate, has this no death zone, and you kick her out of it and kill her.
But here we've got a play coming in. The teleport down to the bottom lane. Almost all of Samsung Galaxy are here to make the play. Duke wants to teleport in. A bit more poke's going to land. The minion's not cleared out. And here comes the attempt of the dive. Under the turret, looking for all 3 kills. Samsung Galaxy want to get them all, but it's not quite what they want. It's only the 2-for-1. Pretty good play. And a trade back. Faker wants a little bit more. And despite a well-orchestrated dive, the actual composition works out that it's only 2-for-2. SKT turn it around and make it an equal trade.
And it actually could have been much better for SKT because Duke had a clean whiff on his ultimate. If he could have hit people against the wall, it stuns them, does a ton of damage. Could have been an even bigger turnaround, but still, very well played by both sides. Duke teleporting down very early, being in position to respond, and Faker, you'll see him running on the minimap, trying to get down here desperately as fast as possible because he can see this dive coming.
Right, and the pings are flying, the teleport comes in here, and here comes that Kennen ultimate. It's a big ball of thunder.
Yeah, everyone else piles in as well. You saw Crown flash in, land his own petrifying gaze ultimate, and there's plenty of damage there. And Faker just showing up in time, landing the Rune Prison, rooting his opponent in place, and just getting the rest of the follow through there.
Wow, you know, you talk about timing. There is something very sublime about being able to arrive at exactly the right time.
Yeah.
You know, 1 second delay, even a millisecond can make a huge difference in a game like League of Legends.
It certainly can. I mean, if Duke wasn't there in time for that teleport, I think they get the 2 clean kills very easily.
Right.
Faker cannot even contest because he is down too many teammates, and they wouldn't have got that damage off.
So we're in a state where the game is 4-3 in kills.
They're
the
going to
actual
dive
goal,
again.
Oh, here we go.
Very tight. Here comes another attempt. It's him trying to juke around, landing a bit of the damage output, but there's just not a lot that CuVee can do. It's a 1 versus 2 to not have the tools to really escape. But now a further chase. Ruler wants to pick off Bang.
Here comes Nami.
Couple more shots will do it. The exhaust, the save from Wolf, and the kill comes through to Bang. Unlucky the Nami was there in range in time.
And for Ruler, you have to respect your opponents. You have to respect the possibility for more people to be there. He didn't. He
Looks
gets
like
punished.
Ambition's about to get caught out as well.
Oh, he is alone against 3. Pops the Lamb's Respite, but he's going to go down in a second. The time is going to end, and here's the rest of the damage. Duke gets the final kill. SKT have opened up several kills in a row now.
And as you see there, the ultimate can work for you, but it can also work against you. He can't kill off his opponents while they're in that zone, and they also get the heal out of it. So if you fall behind on Kindred, you don't have enough damage to burst down your opponents out of that ultimate,
Right.
It really stops doing much for you.
Wow,
See the top lane dive. This is a replay of what happened about 3 minutes ago.
Big play potential. Lee Sin hops over. There's a ward dropped, right? He went straight to the ward. That is,
Yeah,
very impressive.
definitely pretty beautiful. We watched the second half of this one, which was the chase down, and oh no, Wolf is here. Heals his teammate, lands exhaust, which severely cuts damage output down with a combination of a heal and cutting the damage output. There was not enough that Ruler could do. It was a nice save by Wolf, and of course a good turnaround by Bang.
Now it looks like this is playing out similarly to the first game where SKT is off to a very good start after a little bit of back and forth in the beginning. Do you think they're going to be able to hold on to the lead this time based on team comp?
It seems like it.
Yeah, I think that their team composition is very strong. I also think that Faker has a more powerful kind of 1v1 type champion than he did on Orianna last time. And Ryze is also a champion that we call having very good scaling, which essentially means the further into the game you get, the more items you get, the more powerful you become. And Faker having 3 early kills, plus being on a fantastic 1v1 champion, is going to be really scary for Samsung.
I agree that's the case. I think the Cassiopeia, which is the mage played by his direct opponent, by Crown, is also very good in this sort of world. And what's interesting is if you look at the draft these players have gone through, I'll call back to game 1 and then game 2. In the very first game, Samsung Galaxy banned Cassiopeia, and then SKT immediately banned Ryze themselves. They said, we will not let you pick Ryze if Cassio is still on the table, or if Cassio is gone. If we don't have the counter pick there, we're not going to let you do it. And in a similar boat, in this one, Ryze was the first pick, and then that was answered there by Crown picking up Cassiopeia. This seems to be the de facto counter pick that you must play into Ryze. At least teams believe so.
And I think it's fantastic in that early lane. But where I think that the SKT composition excels is they can have Duke in one lane. And as he gets tankier and picks up these items, he's going to be winning those 1v1s against CuVee. And then in another lane, you have Faker pushing in. And it gets very difficult to answer both sides.
Ooh, we have another fight down in the jungle. Ambition trying to pick off some of these objectives, but now a little bit caught out. The ultimate in for Bang, forcing one flash away, and Ambition just kiting out, and not enough damage and not enough slow was out. It did still force a summoner spell. There is still a major cooldown missing now because of that failed invade. And a good answer by SKT. Now Bengi forced to run away, but he will do so successfully.
I love that Jhin ultimate, the curtain call, right? You see it from a mile away, and you're just hoping not to get hit by one of those bullets because they slow you down, they deal a ton of damage, and it's a great way to just stop someone from making an escape in this case.
Nice bubble land, the heal as well, and you saw some pretty good mechanics out of Wolf, and now another attempted dive. They are trying to pick off CuVee. He's one hit away from killing off the opponent, but it's not going to be enough. Duke lands the boomerang and gets himself the kill. Faker, of course, helped, and there's been so much pressure in this top side. They have repeatedly picked off CuVee.
And this is so smart by SKT because they knew that early in the game, Duke would have a disadvantage against CuVee because of the matchup. So they're playing around that. Samsung is not defending their top laner, and SKT is killing him over and over and over again.
You know, that's crazy. Do you think there is just a lack of communication going on here between Samsung? Because obviously after the first 2 times, you have to say, hey, fool me once, fool me twice. Fool me 3 times coming after that poor Kennen.
Yeah, I think it's one of those situations where because Lee Sin is going to kind of outduel the Kindred, and because it's very scary if Faker pushes an opponent and roams first to walk through the jungle and potentially face check into him, they're just not sure how to deal with it. They're losing control of the top side of the jungle, and it's allowing Faker to get up and make those plays.
We're seeing the replay of that fight. In the meantime, actually in the live, you've got a battle as well as, once again, Ambition on the short end of the stick, caught out inside his own jungle now. He's not even being greedy. He's just being invaded upon, and SKT are killing him off repeatedly now.
But that's exactly what I was talking about. You know, just like you said, Jimmy, it's why can't they respond? And this is why. Because they're losing control of their jungle. If you walk through and you find the Lee Sin, find the Ryze, you just die.
We are seeing objectives created on the other side of the map, though. I want to point out that Samsung Galaxy now have a second turret kill. They were able to knock down the bottom lane. So you're right, Faker's made top lane hell for CuVee. And to his credit, he has, and it's working out. They've killed a turret. This tier 2 now, which is even harder to kill, already down to half. But this, you know, focus is working. But Samsung Galaxy have been focusing the bottom side of the map. They've picked that Caitlyn again to be a late game damage source. This marksman, this AD carry, whatever you want to call it, she's going to be a big force here. Ruler's going to be a big thing. And they're giving him a lot of help. You're seeing the Cassiopeia, played by Crown, roam down. They've picked off a turret because of it. They've gotten some kills because of it. And this seems to be basically both teams picking other objectives. But now a re-engage on the bottom side. And CoreJJ is now the one caught out. That's going to be picked off by Bang. Another kill coming through to SKT. They're just getting more done.
He just sort of gave up his life there to allow his teammate to run away, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Oof.
Definitely
it was a noble sacrifice.
Yeah, you will be remembered, CoreJJ. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mid lane outer has already been killed, and bottom outer, but yeah, I think SKT have been playing this game better.
Yeah, Faker just feels like he's everywhere. I mean, he's been involved in 7 kills as the mid laner, and that's because he's always pushing out mid lane, so he's not missing out on that gold experience, and he goes to sides.
Maybe another one for Ambition. Beautifully played by Bengi. That was really nice. The kick into the Q lands it all. That was nice, and now, Crown, you're a little bit alone here. He's got to hide away from his own turret, and you've got even more fighting in the top side. Duke is massive on this Gnar. He's pushing everybody away from him.
And this middle turret is very important. It's sort of like the, you know, it's the central nervous system, as I like to call it, of the map. Once you start getting these middle turrets, you're able to really just drive into the opponent's nexus. And looks like SKT is hoping to finish this off and not let it go on for too much longer.
Yeah, they certainly are.
Being stolen.
We're seeing how strong Duke is getting now, and he actually has 3,000 or so unspent gold, so he's only going to get stronger.
That was close, actually. Yeah, Duke is really big. He has items, he has gold. He also has a buff called the Rift Herald. We saw a lot of questions about that on Twitter. So Rift Herald is something that was killed about 7 minutes ago. It only spawns once, and at 20 minutes it despawns. So you don't even get it every game. You get it about in 1/5 of pro games. It's not super high priority, but it was a nice timing. So there's a description down there. Basically, it's a very long-term buff. The buff lasts 20 minutes. And you basically become a supreme split push. You get a bunch of stats you care about to make sure you can 1v1 with impunity.
Yeah, you usually don't see the Rift Herald being taken. There was actually a newer addition to the game recently.
Yeah, this year.
And the global objectives, like the dragon that you see down at the bottom, they're there to force interaction between players to make sure that say like, hey, look, you're going to get a bonus for killing this thing. And if one team starts taking it, you're obliged as the other team to either contest it, get in the way, or perhaps even steal it like we saw in the last game.
Yeah. Yep. Certainly are, and with that Rift Herald buff and the Frozen Mallet is going to be the pickup for Duke, and this is a very powerful item on Gnar because we talked about his mini form where he's ranged. Every time you attack someone, it applies a slow, and it makes it so hard for CuVee to actually run away because he can just keep up with you. He gets movement speed bonus every third hit he does, and then he also is able to slow you down with this and chase you down, and it makes him really a force in the split push game, which is essentially staying in the side lanes and looking for these 1v1 fights.
Which specifically plays into the kind of style they're hoping to prevent from Samsung Galaxy. Kennen, again, is an incredibly explosive flanker. If CuVee gets the chance to get behind SKT and start a team fight on his terms, even though he has 0 kills and, what is that, 3 to 5 deaths, 3 deaths I think it is, he will still do tons of damage, and he will pick off his opponents very easily.
Right.
And so by Duke being so good one-on-one, he says, if you leave to help your team, I will kill your base by myself. And so CuVee does not get the chance to leave and the chance to flank the opposing team.
Right, the split push, right?
Yeah, that's the term we call it.
Kennen making his way there. And what you just saw Duke do there is take out a ward next to Baron, so vision control is really important as well. Knowing who is going for the objectives at what time, how many people are there, and knowing what wards are around, and being able to get rid of them, it's sort of like this constant back and forth. It's one of those things that it's definitely a much more advanced thing that I'm just starting to pick up now.
Ooh, another attempt for the fight right there. We're going to land all the skill shots they need. A little bit more.
Nami
They're going to pick off CoreJJ, but he's able to flash out. Even still, SKT picked off the mid lane outer turret. That's better than any kill. And Faker wants back in. A nice Lamser spike going to buy some time. The ultimate out of ambition will prevent his teammates from dying. They're able to escape, and no casualties champion-wise. But again, mid lane turret going down. SKT growing their lead.
Turns out the only way you can cheat death by Faker is by literally cheating death.
And a lot of summoner spells were used there, so SKT does get the advantages. And you talked about vision control around Baron, and that's kind of making sure you have these wards, these little totems, if you will, around the map that give you vision of these objectives, let you know if they are starting them. And Samsung is losing vision in their own jungle. So they're in this scary world where it's all dark. They don't know where their opponents are. And if they come in here and find a bunch of SKT members, they could find themselves going down.
Wow, very tight fight. Yeah, so Bang took away the red buff. We talk about objectives all the time. These spawn every 5 minutes. And when you wield it, it lasts 1.5 to 2 minutes. It's a fairly short duration. It's on less than half the time. And it gives you extra damage. Your auto attacks now slow people, so he's now got his own crowd control. He can chase people down. It also gives a nice little bit of health regen. Basically, you always want it on a marksman like this Jhin, like the champion Bang is playing, so it's the ideal recipient, and he's going to be even more threatening. That minion's on fire because of the red buff.
No, he's just styling.
Yeah. But yeah, red buff lights thing on fire, which for some reason slows. Just trust us is how it works. Would you run as fast if you were on fire?
No, you got to be slapping your legs. You're trying to put it
out.
out.
Yeah, stop, drop, and roll.
Everyone's got to stop, drop, and roll to put it out, so they're just much slower. If only Rammus were immune, then it would make more sense.
Are you telling me there's something unrealistic in a video game, Phreak?
I am.
You're ruining my immersion.
I'm sorry, buddy. That's how it works. A circle that makes you cheat death. I feel like slightly unrealistic.
The wizards, the teleporting, the giant worm that respawns every 7 minutes. That all very believable.
Yeah.
But when you turn on fire and you slow down,
the immersion broken.
I'm completely immersion's gone.
Now, if you look at the gold lead here, it looks like SKT's up 7,000 gold or so. It seems like that's actually not too much, considering they're also up 12 kills to 3.
Yeah, it is. It's what happened last game as well. Samsung Galaxy are making the games closer than you would expect by first glance at the scoreboard. Kills don't mean everything. Of course, they're a good indicator. But it is it's SKT winning and Samsung Galaxy keeping it as close as they can and doing a good job of it.
They certainly are trying their best to keep it close, but I am very worried for them because I can't see a world in which CuVee ever wins a 1v1 against Duke for the rest of the game. His time to kind of dominate that 1v1 is long past now, and as Duke builds up more and more magic resist, he can start to play more and more aggressive. And actually, it can get to the point where Gnar can just kill a Kennen under their turret once you have things like a Spirit Visage and stuff, and you don't take enough damage.
Yeah, turrets are usually this sort of like this safe haven, right? If all's going wrong, just hang out by the turret. You probably won't die. But when you get dove or divin,
dove.
Yeah.
I think dive is also okay.
It just makes it so much harder, and you can even just see the items too that Kennen has opposed to CuVee has opposed to Duke. He just has not been able to build out as much.
Even though both the slots are filled and it looks like they've all got full builds, trust me, the items that CuVee has are very inexpensive, and he's got some of that store brand items, and yeah, we've got some Gucci right now for Duke.
And Baron, this is the payoff for SKT, controlling vision in their opponent's jungle for so long.
Beautiful.
And they're actually showing members in the mid lane. So Samsung didn't even know this was happening. They're like thinking that the rest of the team is probably basing, buying new items. Because SKT was strong enough to do it with 3 guys. They put 2 in the mid lane. They show this force here, and they didn't even suspect it.
Right, it's not entirely unheard of, but there's still 3-man a 5-man raid boss, essentially, right? That's not super common, absolutely. It's a really nice orchestrated play. We don't see things like this all that often in pro play. Not unheard of, but still pretty sweet overall. And SKT, much earlier than the previous game, have taken Baron Nashor. It's usually the key that teams use to actually close the game out. Very rarely will they win the game without taking Baron at some point. And SKT have already done that and are likely to get a lot out of that Baron sneak, as it's called.
And clearly they felt comfortable enough to take it with 3 people. Usually you want all 5 there so that you can take the health from 100 to 0 much more quickly and ensure they can't steal it. But they had absolutely the other team had no vision, had no idea they were even there. That was it, just easy objective for them.
Yeah, it's these setups that you see many minutes in advance, right? This is all their long-term plan, is to get the Baron, and they do this by consistently clearing out their opponent's vision, denying them from coming over and checking if they're doing it, denying them from taking the monsters that spawn in their own jungle, and just kind of cooping them up further and further and further back into their base until you end up in this situation where you're just falling further and further behind because you're killing less monsters and minions.
Speaking of killing, this is now a bad spot for CuVee to be a nice kickback by Bengi. Does not matter. A 2-on-1 kill, beautifully done by SKT. They've got a 5v4, which means they can push very easily.
Yeah, Gnar is here in the bottom lane. There's no one to answer him, so SKT just needs to hang out here until someone goes to answer, and they will have a numbers advantage, right? If you send one of your members to deal with him, CuVee's dead, so now they can push in the mid lane because there's no one to defend there.
And you can see that the minions are glowing purple because they have the Baron buff, which allows them to push even harder. And like, there's still 15 seconds before Kennen comes up. This is like a power play in hockey, right? They can just go, they can split push, they can go to every single lane. They can just continually make those turrets go down, and there's not much that Samsung can do about it.
So speaking of turrets taking down, I'll bring us to another Twitter question that was asked. Jukas asks, why do the players sometimes let the minions take out the turrets as opposed to the champions themselves doing it?
I have no idea.
Well, it's one of those situations where basically you kill off your opponent's minions, and then you know that your minions will build up and push towards their turrets and try to do that. So you can allow them to do that work for you while you get in position to do something else. So I start this push in the top lane, then I go mid lane. One of my opponents must then go answer and kill off all those minions, or they will lose a turret. And if they do that, now I'm in the mid lane to fight with my team and perhaps take another objective there. So it's kind of two birds with one stone. You let them do some work for you so you can be elsewhere to get some more done.
Exactly. The one resource that you can't get more of is time, and time is probably the most scarce resource in this game. Being in the right place in time for something to go down there.
Oh,
ooh,
no.
Bang.
Wow.
Already picked up a kill without his mid laner even around. Maybe the trade kill comes in. They're looking for CuVee to get in, and you just can't find anyone to attack, so that is a wasted ultimate. And now the flank is on. Duke is there. Bang with another kill. He is unstoppable by having so many kills without dying, and it's going to get worse.
Samsung is stuck out of their base. They might not be able to get in here. This could potentially be the game-ending fight for SKT if they kill them all.
Looking for a bit more. CoreJJ is going to get jumped on. Into the back lines they go. Another kill picked up, and now they're just finding more kills, more kills, more kills. It's only one man left alive, and it's not going to be enough. A double kill for Faker himself. 18-3 on the scoreboard for kills. An ace. Everyone is dead from Samsung Galaxy, and now it's free reign to do whatever they want on this map.
Wow, that was super intense, and that was very well set up by Nami as well, using her ultimate to push Samsung when they were originally going to try and crash in on them being pushed out a little bit. Nami pushes them all back, and as they retreat, they just take a shorter route back to their base and just catch them all out.
And SKT is going to try to push for the win here. They're working on those Nexus turrets. If they can kill off Ambition, it'd be huge.
Boy. Looking for the little bit more, but the respawn timers are back, so the team is there to defend, but it's not going to be enough. CuVee drops again, and now it's only one Nexus turret left. Much faster than the last one. Looking for the Nexus. They're going to look to take it down, but not for a couple more swag kills. And there we go. 2-0 to SK Telecom T1. A single more game, and they will be the world champions.
A three-peat. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. This is the 6th annual League of Legends World Championship. SKT have already won this twice, and they are one game away from making it 3 out of the total of 6 world championships that they have won.
It's pretty ridiculous to think about. They have they're gonna have a better win rate in world championships than most people will playing ranked by themselves, right? Like they have a better chance to win a world championship than I do playing solo queue half the time.
Absolutely the case. So
and you can just see it on Samsung's faces as well. They are under the gun here, just one loss away from losing the world championship.
oh, Crown did not look happy there.
And that's one of the toughest parts is the mental game here. Having the mental fortitude to even have a chance to kind of battle back when you're up against the wall. Samsung, they just got dismantled 2 straight games. They have to basically reverse sweep if they want to be able to win here. And that takes a lot of mental strength. You cannot crack under the pressure. And seeing the frustration on Crown's face makes you a little bit worried about maybe they already have.
And they don't have time like the Cavs, right, to brought it back 3-1. They don't have a time to sit, rest, take a nap, they're right back in it.
Yeah, you don't get to reset. You don't get to kind of talk to people and think it through and sleep it off and that kind of thing. It's nonstop. We play the whole thing in one night. Whew.
Yep, you get 10 to 15 minutes. We have seen comebacks like this before. We've seen the 2-0 turn into the 3-2 victory at the end. There is still a chance, but it is going to be an uphill and steep road for Samsung Galaxy. 2-0 to SKT. We'll see them make it 3. But after this, we'll be right back with Game 3 of the World Championship Final.